Story 1. Pretty Lies. Getting ourselves grown up into sophisticated individuals. We've forgotten what glorious mess we were back in the old days, when the world seemed so tall from our heads, when teasing and fooling around with those tall figures was so much fun, when we all were pretty liars, lying about every second thing we've been asked by the tall people. That perplexed look on their faces was the best part, because they had a hard time guessing whether we're actually telling truth this time or lying again. Those keys were so lovely, so lively, honey. Switch off the TV. Now you're getting late for school. Little Gerald stood up from the couch, mending his jumpsuit in the process, and switching off the television as Dennis the Menace finally rolled their ass. He was happy he completed the whole episode this time, which he often misses as he leaves for the school every day. By then, he quickly picks up his tiny school bag and rushes off to the door as if he has been standing there since a long while and it was his mom making him late. Dorothy Williams, a skinny blonde with an angry grin on her face, reaches for Gerald. Have you seen the car keys, Gerald? I'm sure I saw them right here on the cupboard this morning, pointing towards the elegant wooden cupboard on her left. Oh, I know, Mommy, I know. I saw them on the couch when I was watching TV. As soon as his mother left the scene, Gerald pulls out his right hand from the pocket and throws the keys flying above on the cupboard exactly where they were supposed to be kept. That's strange. There were no keys on the couch. I ought to. She looks at the keys. Gerald, how many times shall I tell you not to mess around, especially at such a wrong time? I know you must have kept them here when I left. No, Mommy, I didn't. The frustrated mother neither had time for arguing with her son, nor did she want to get late anymore. Both of them now drifted towards the hatchback sedan and soon after the big Victorian house, towards a long endless street with houses of all shapes and sizes on both sides. The car too. Okay, a left turn after a quarter mile, towards another street. After a drive of another couple of minutes, the car stopped. The door on the passenger's side opened wide. Behind the metal door on the ground emerged to small feet, and behind the black-tinted windshield, one could see the driver bending slightly towards the little passenger to kiss him goodbye. Honey, I have an important meeting this noon and won't be able to drop you back to home. I've asked Mr. Winters to pick you up along with his son. Take care. Bye-bye. Gerald nodded. Swinging his pack round his back, he rushed towards the school with enough confidence and determination in eyes to give his teachers a hard time at school. After a few hours, the gates of the Marigold's primer, "Why school open?" Little toddlers started spilling out. Gerald came gossiping with his gang, easily distinguishable from others amidst the crowd. Just then he saw Mr. Winters, eagerly waiting for his son and Gerald to arrive. "Hello, Gerald. We'll leave for your home as soon as Carter comes. Just stick with me. He will be here soon." But Gerald was the kind of a kid who would do anything but the exact opposite of what is instructed to him. Moreover, he's a grown-up now and the tallest in his class. He can go home all by himself. Perhaps that's what he thinks. No need Mr. Winters. You see my mom over there. Here I go. Before Mr. Winters could check if his mother has really arrived or not, the little boy was vanished from the crowd. On the way back home, Gerald was walking and skipping all around when his eyes fell on something which made him stop his feet Gerald saw a weird-looking, shabbily dressed, Gothic lady, her face as pale as dead, dried autumn leaves. A head tilted slightly towards left, with eye sockets embedded with something, but definitely not eyes, wrinkles running all over her face, with a smile not as wide as the one Gerald D's mom used to see in late-night horror shows, but the smile was grim enough to frighten anyone who looks upon it. Her hands were motionless, suspending downwards from her shoulders awkwardly, as if ropes suspended off an upright corpse. Gerald was fear-ridden, obviously, no matter how much naughty and peculiar type of a child he was, yet still he was a mere 6-year-old. His head dripped streams of sweat running all the way down to his belly. His legs started trembling, and his face, which always wore a naughty smile, now frowned with fear. Without wasting any moment, Gerald rushed towards his home with all his might. He'd never run that fast before. Overpowered with panic, the swift little kid fell badly on the road and hurt his knees with tears in high size and blood oozing off his knees. Gerald reached his home. He threw the welcome carpet in front of the main door in the air, picked up keys, and locked the door, and quickly shut it. With a thud once inside, it was 2 hours later when Dorothy arrived in the house and saw some red liquid stains on the floor. At first she was shocked, but soon this apprehension was turned into suspicion. She thought Kitty Gerald was playing his games with her again as he did the ketchup blood-stain prank last month. She followed the stains to Gerald's bedroom, but find her son having wounds on his knees. She soon realized he must have had some prank gone wrong scenario, but whatever it was, the wounds were legit. So was the blood. Hence she first of all applied Band-Aids to her son, gave him a lovely hug, and then asked him affectionately, "Okay, Gary, Mommy wants to know what happened. I won't scold you, but please speak truth this time." Gary honestly described the whole scene to his mother, but due to his fame of being a liar of liars, she thought he's lying again and must have fought with some kid and lying in order to hide his fault. Little did she know that the poor Dee was not lying. She left him alone in his room in anger, without uttering a single word. Gerald never felt so much helpless and lonely before. After a few minutes, he changed his robes and came downstairs towards the telephone. He was calling Edward, his best friend, to his home for some company in this hard time. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Gerald welcomed Edward just when he was able to close the door. He saw the same familiar figure he encountered a couple of hours ago, but this time it was standing right in front of the house in the middle of the road, with face tilted left towards him. He shut the door quickly, grabbed Edward's hand, and rushed towards his room. He didn't leave his hand until both were seated on the bed. Edward, I want to tell you something. You sure, Gary? I'm listening today. When I was coming back to home from school, what? Said Edward. Gerald didn't speak and was completely motionless now. Are you even gonna say something, Gerald? Stop playing your old games with me. Just then, Gerald replied in a whispering tone, "There's someone behind you." "Oh, really? Shall I expect a boogeyman behind me right now?" "Stop lying, Gerald. You shouldn't lie." With a zapping sound of incision, the creepy Gothic lady cut Edward exactly in half with her nails, which now seemed to be like needles. Blood fell all over Gerald's face and clothes, and the little kid shouted helplessly. Gerald quickly rushed downstairs looking for his mother. She saw blood all over him again just when Gerald explained what happened. She exclaimed, "Enough, Gerald, enough of these tricks, pranks, and lying. You don't have any idea how much problems you create for me. Stop lying, Gerald. You shouldn't." "Mom, she's behind you." Before Dorothy could even react or say a word or look behind, she shared the same fate as that of Edward. Her body cut perfectly in half from top to bottom. "No!" cried Gerald. The left part of her body fell leftwards, while the right one fell on Gerald with blood flooding all over the floor. The old lady now seemed much bigger, darker, and creepier, now with a wide smile running from her left ear to the right ear, thus revealing her sharp teeth, hundreds in number. She pounced upon Gerald with her nails penetrating deep inside his eyes. "No, help me, please, help. You shouldn't have, Gerald. You shouldn't lie. Nah, you'll die, kid. Time to go to deep sleep." No, just then Gerald saw a much familiar face as he slowly opened his eyes. It was his mom, frightened by him crying at midnight and waking him up. And perhaps it was just a nightmare, Mom, a bad dream. "You, Edward, me, all dead, Mommy, all dead. That old lady. Really, Gerald, I don't think it was a dream. Perhaps you were trying to scare me, as you always do, but, Mommy, I swear, I'm not lying. Tell me truth. It was not a dream, right?" "It really was a dream, Mom. Stop lying, Gerald. You shouldn't lie, because—" Gerald noticed his mom's voice and face changing gothically. "I said it was not a dream, and I told you that you shouldn't lie. Nah, you'll die, kid. Time to go to deep sleep." And the bed he was lying on filled with blood once again. Story 2. The holder of the end of the story. This pasta is yet another entry in the Holders series, a loose grouping of stories by countless different authors based on a specific premise. If this series is new to you, you may wish to visit this website dedicated specifically to archiving Holders stories, although we have a tag for the series and have posted several new entries over the year. The Holders wiki is much more complete. To reach the holder of the end of his story, go to the place that you feel the strongest connection to. What that place is will depend on you. It might be the house you live in. It might be your childhood home. For some, it means going to that magical little creekside place where you and your friends used to play, or to the coffee shop that you stopped in every morning before work. When you reach the place, find the part of it that means the most to you. It might be your old room, or that spot on the side of the creek where you would always build your fort, or the table where you wrote your first novel. Step to W. Within a few feet of that spot, facing it, and then stop. At this point, you should consider very carefully whether you really want to continue. You don't need to stand there considering it for a particular amount of time. A millisecond will suffice. Or if you really want to, you can skip this step entirely. There won't be any consequences. You won't be dragged off by some unspeakable horror, or tormented by eternal madness, or torn apart by ravenous bees, or some such silliness. That's not how this one works. Depending on how your previous trials have affected you, you'll probably end up wishing that it was. It's up to you, but I would strongly recommend that you take your time to consider whether or not to go on. At this point, you can still walk away, without any consequences. Think about it. If you've recovered other objects already, and you probably have, then your experiences may have. Well, it's only a certain sort of person who see and maintain any real sense of connection to the world after all the horrors that you've undoubtedly gone through. By now you might feel completely numb to everything, or be so haunted by visions of unspeakable things that your heart just doesn't have room for anything but pain and terror. Your mind might be so frayed that you can barely remember the past, much less which places were the ones you loved, or your connection to reality might be so tenuous that you can't for the life of you tell which of your memories are real and which ones are just the mad whispers of your own probably demented unconscious mind. Maybe all of the above. Do not, I repeat, do not continue to seek this object if you no longer have the capacity to love the place in front of you. Walk away. There are plenty. Why of other objects out there? Who knows? Maybe one of them will restore the parts of you that you've lost. That's not generally the way they work. But hey, you never know. If you honestly think that you're still capable of loving this precious place, then say aloud, I seek to secure the story's end, and then step forward. This might mean crossing a threshold into your old room. It might mean stepping into that one special spot on the side of the creek. Maybe your precious place is something that you can't step into, like a wall that used to have a whiteboard that you and your sister would draw on, or something like that. Even so, step forward anyway. In the very likely event that your experiences have already damaged your soul beyond repair, destroying or dementing every emotional connection to the world that you ever had, then this is where your journey ends. I warned you, didn't I? I won't say what happens to you at this point, Don. Worrying though, you won't be torn apart, or go mad, or suffer terrible agonies for eternity, or anything like that. You won't even die. Not for a long, long time. That's not how this one works. You'll wish it was. Still curious. If you absolutely can't stand not knowing what happens to the ones that fail, then by all means go to your precious place and try it for yourself. You'll probably find your answer. Just don't blame me when you wish you hadn't. If by some unlikely miracle you're actually still intact enough to feel a real connection to this place, then in an instant the environment and you will change. You'll find yourself in a nice, moderately sized room. There may be furniture scattered around. There may be paintings on the walls. It's different for everyone. The room will always be laid out in a way that reminds you of some of your happiest memories. There might be a couch that reminds you of the one at your best friend's house where you always used to have movie in. Heights, or a painting of someone you love at the age when they meant the most to you. The only constant is that at the center of the room you'll always find two comfortable chairs that are facing each other. The chair closest to you will remind you of the place that feels most like home. I will be sitting in the other chair. Don't worry. There aren't any special rule. Here, you won't be attacked if you look away from me, or go mad if you look into my eyes. That's not how this one works. Go ahead and sit in the empty chair. Once you're comfortable, lines welcome you to my sanctum and tell you what you've probably already guessed, that I am the holder of the end of the story. Congratulations. Very, very few seekers have ever reached me. Lines then all for you a choice. There's no trick to it. You won't be punished for choosing one way or the other. Well, you won't be punished beyond the natural consequences of your choice. No way. That's not how this one works. The choice I'll offer you is this. If you want, I'll give you the object you've come for. No strings attached, no tricks. It won't suddenly burrow into your eye and gobble up your brain, or make you hear the endless screams of the damned in your head, or kill a puppy, or some such nonsense. That's not how this one works, or you can make the other chores. You can go home. That's right, home. I don't mean leave this place and go off seeking the next object. I mean really, truly go home, back to before all of this started. I can make that happen. And not the object I hold is the real reward you've proven yourself worthy of by reaching me. That's how this one works. Or, of course, you can choose to go on. Take as much time as you need. I recommend thinking long and hard on this one. It's not a choice to make lightly. When you're ready, go ahead and tell me your decision. If you take me up on my offer, then all the objects you've acquired will return to where you found them. Any damage that's happened to your body, mind, soul, and all that will be healed. Everyone and everything that you've sacrificed to reach this point will be restored as if your quest never happened at all. Anyone you've hurt or killed or damaged in other ways will be completely restored. All the knowledge that you've gained and the secrets that you've learned will be erased from your memory, as well as any notes or recordings you've made in any form. It will still be possible for you to act as a seeker again, but you'll to discover everything all over again, and you'll believe that it's your first time doing it. The holders will also lose all memory of you. Well, except for me. I'll remember. Who knows? Maybe this isn't the first time we've had this conversation. If you choose to go on, then for the briefest instant will think that you see a look of deep, deep sadness pass over my face. You lines wonder if I haven't stood exactly where you're standing now and made the exact same choice. It'll be so brief, in fact, that you won't be sure if it was really there at all. Without warning, you'll find yourself back in the precious place where you started. It will now be a charred ruin. Anyone who was in it when you crossed into my sanctum will be dead, their bodies as burned as the walls. If your memories of this place include sharing it with anyone, then you should pray for their sake that they died before this moment. Reach down and scoop up a handful of ashes. Don't worry, you won't have trouble finding some. They'll be all around you. As you hold them in your hand, you'll be filled with the knowledge that no matter what happens in the future, no matter what you do, you will never again have an opportunity to give up your quest. Not for long. Touching this object has changed you. You now have an irresistible compulsion to seek the objects. The longer you go without fulfilling that compulsion, the more you'll feel compelled to, until you can't resist it anymore. The pile of ashes in your hand is object hash 1467. There's only one way left for his story to end. Story 3. Fuzzy. I was jolted out of sleep when my 5-year-old son, Kevin, jumped on top of me. I let out a little yelp, both from the shock of the impact and from being ripped out of a deep sleep. A little disoriented, it took me a few moments to figure out what was going on. Now jumping up and down on the bed, Kevin yelled, "Fuzzy came again." Fuzzy came again, I sighed, rubbed my eyes, and checked the clock. It wasn't even 6 o'clock in the morning yet. Kevin continued to jump ecstatically around the bed. By now, my husband was awake and very cranky. He looked over to the clock and, seeing the time, released a frustrated moan. "Jesus, kid, can't you wait until at least 6?" He murmured sleepily. He had been sleeping soundly. Fuzzy came again. "I told you he would." Kevin was too excited to care what time it was. It could have been 1 in the morning for all he cared. "He's back, he's back." Fuzzy, as he called him, was what we asked Sue. Med was Kevin's imaginary friend. He described him as a fuzzy, colorful creature that arrives in magical mist through his window every night, and they play together. Kevin claimed that he could change colors and even shape, but he was always as fuzzy. My husband and I both dismissed this as an imaginary friend phase, as we lived in a somewhat rural area outside of a minor city, and there was no one around to play with. Every morning, he would tell us what he did with Fuzzy last night. His stories would include making puzzles, reading books, jumping around, and cuddling. The one thing that was weird, though, was the fact that Evan had at first told us that Fuzzy didn't want us to know about his nightly visits. A bit put off at first, I soon disregarded this as merely a child's need to feel special because he had a secret. Sometimes I felt the need to check on Kevin at night just to make sure everything was all right. The main reason I didn't was because Kevin was a very light sleeper, in contrast to me and my husband, who were very heavy sleepers, and I didn't want to run the risk of waking him up. Kevin had stopped talking about Fuzzy a couple months back, so we just assumed that he had grown out of it. I didn't see anything wrong with Kevin bringing Fuzzy back. I was happy as long as he was happy. I was a housewife. My husband worked in the city and was gone pretty much all day, so I cared for Kevin as he wasn't in school yet. It did get rather annoying after a while, constantly being bombarded with stories of Fuzzy all day. I smiled at Kevin's enthusiasm, but deep down I felt a sense of dread welling up at the idea of Fuzzy returning. I got up out of bed and left the room, leaving my husband to deal with Kevin, and went downstairs. While making breakfast, I decided to check the newspaper. A car crashed on the interstate, and no body was found. A rich lady donated some money to the state for park improvements or something, claiming that their current state was simply unacceptable. There was a short editorial on why kids are doing poorly in school and parenting suggestions on the topic. An old man accused of pedophilia and using hallucinogenics and other drugs to lure children, arrested 3 months ago, was released from jail as there was not enough incriminating evidence. There was some sports stuff too, but I didn't bother checking that as I was never really into sports. Later that day, I was in Kevin's room cleaning up. It smelled funny in his room. In fact, the last time I remembered it smelling this way was the last time Kevin was talking about Fuzzy. I thought about it for a moment, but decided to just dismiss it as just fermented body odor from him jumping around on his bed with his imaginary friend. I decided to open the window, as it was giving me a headache. Looking out, I saw Kevin out in the yard playing with some of his toys. It had rained last night, and the ground was soft and muddy, so I made sure to warn him not to go near the mud. I lowered my head to withdraw back into the room, but noticed something on the ground beneath the window, two holes about a foot or so apart. They weren't that big, so I wasn't to concern. It just bugged me, as I couldn't think of anything that might have made them. I looked up to ask Kevin if he knew what they were. He might have made them. He had moved somewhere else, though, and I didn't feel like chasing him down to ask about something so menial. The next day I was wiping down a window in the dining room, which lied directly below Kevin's room. The 2 holes caught my eye again, however. This time they were even bigger than before. At dinner, I decided to ask Kevin if he had been digging in the backyard. He said no, so I figured it must have been animals or something. That evening, something else occurred to me. I found Kevin in the living room. "Hey, Kevin," I asked, "why does Fu Z only come at night? You seem bored lately, and you never play with him during daytime." He simply shrugged. "I don't know," he replied. "He just doesn't." This was when things started to feel a bit off. It had never occurred to me before that Kevin didn't play with Fuzzy during the daytime. It was probably just his way of keeping Fuzzy a more realistic light. If he brought Fuzzy out to show him to us, he would see that we clearly didn't believe in the fluffy piece of air next to him. Yeah, that's it. That's why. Nothing much happened for the next week or so. My husband and I went to bed at 10 o'clock sharp. As usual, we let Kevin stay up later if he wanted to, so he could play with his imaginary friend. We didn't mind the noise he made. In fact, if we were asleep, we didn't hear it at all. Hell, a train couldn't wake us up once we hit deep sleep. Every night Kenny would say something different about Fuzzy. One night he apparently brought a cookie which I strongly suspect he stole from the cookie jar, and another night they flew through the clouds on Fuzzy's back. We were happy that our child's imagination was healthy, but that feeling that something was slightly off never went away. The next week, I had to start putting Kevin to bed at the same time we went to bed, and later on, earlier than us. School was coming up soon, and I wanted him to be on a normal biorhythm so that he could wake up early. But of course, this disrupted his Fuzzy schedule, and he would not go to bed without a fight. As days passed, it was becoming visibly obvious that he was not going to sleep when he was supposed to, and instead probably getting up after we fell asleep. Dark circles under his eyes formed. He was whinier than ever, and almost impossible to deal with, leaving me utterly exhausted every day. Needless to say, I had no trouble falling asleep that week. I was getting sick of my authority being undermined. I decided to stay up late one night in order to catch him in the act. I went to bed as normal, got up and moved to a chair, and after about a 30-minute period of sitting there, I began to doze off. I decided I would need some help in this stakeout. I crept downstairs to make a quick batch of coffee. The feeling that something was wrong never alleviated itself. It felt like my mother's instinct was going off, but I didn't know why. I stood in the kitchen, sipping my coffee for what seemed to be ages. Frequently glancing at the clock didn't help. I spent most of the time reading the newspaper, and every time I began to doze off, I got more coffee. Accustomed to utter silence, I jumped a little when I heard a little thump coming from upstairs. The clock read 12:30. I had no idea Kevin had the capacity to wait for more than 3 hours just for a stupid imaginary friend. I quietly set my stuff down on the kitchen table and tiptoed to the stairs. I made sure to avoid the creaky steps as I slowly ascended into the darkness of the second floor. Just as I reached the top step, I heard Kevin's voice from down the hallway. Fuzzy. It was now blindingly obvious that Kevin was awake. I heard another thump from Kevin's room as I slowly made my way down the hallway. I thought about calling out his name and scolding him right then, but decided against it, as it would only serve to alert him to my presence and allow him to retreat under the covers and pretend he was asleep. The feeling that something was wrong grew from minor to almost unbearable. A soft hissing noise coming from his room was now within earshot. I reached the door. Gulping, I silently gripped the handle, turned it, and pushed inward. As I was opening the door, Kevin's bedroom window came into view. It was wide open, and in it a ladder. I flung the door wide open and nearly fainted. There, in the middle of the room, was an incredibly hairy, naked old man wearing a gas mask. He was feeding hallucinogenic gas up Kevin's nose. Story 4. Hell, it's late July. I'm driving around on the back roads in the forest of rural Alabama. It's early evening, and the sun is just beginning to set. The hot, humid air of the day has cooled down, and crickets are starting to chirp. A few small bats fly overhead, snatching mosquitoes and moths out of the air. My windows are rolled down, and I am enjoying the fresh air as my truck meanders down the crumbling asphalt road. I like taking these drives. They relax me, and I have time to think. I take them often and know the woods well. I look up at the clear sky. There isn't a cloud in sight. A few stars twinkle to the east. As the evening shifts to night, I decide to head back home. The air is tense and even more humid than before, and it feels like storm is coming. The deep rumble of thunder from many miles away reaches my ears, and the chatter of the woods lessens. The storm is far off, and I feel no rush to get home. I still have time to enjoy nature. The stars are beautiful. A massive splat hits my windshield, and then another, and then another. I'm startled by the noise, and soon I am engulfed by a downpour of rain. I can't see 5 feet in front of me, so I pull off to the side of the road, roll up my windows, and wait for the storm to pass. These showers usually last 15 minutes anyway. I'll be out of here soon. I swear I could see the stars, clear as glass, only a minute before. I don't dwell on it, though. Summer weather in Alabama is unpredictable. Lightning splits the sky above us. As I wait, I am still sitting in my truck after an hour of heavy rain, and the storm shows no sign of letting up. Lightning pierces the cloud cover again, illuminating my surroundings. I can see about 20 feet in front of me for less than a second, and I get a glimpse of a figure at the perimeter of my field of vision. Darkness, the steady beat of rain on my truck continues. Another flash, and with no figure in sight. I'm tired now and starting to see things. This storm can't last too much longer, but the sky keeps emptying itself upon me. Not 15 minutes later, my truck shifts in the ground, which is now made of mud. I am awoken from the light nap I had been taking and look around. The rain presses on, and the darkness is dense. I prop my elbow on the car door and rest my head in my hand, planning to try to get some more sleep. The car was just settling into the newly softened ground. It is impossible to see the sky. The bed of my truck dips and slams into the ground, and the cab jumps into the air. My head flies forward and meets the steering wheel. As I lift my head up, the cab falls back to the soft earth and my head again. It's the saint. Hearing a wheel, I do not know how long I am unconscious, but I wake up with a splitting headache and my whole face feels wet. At first, I think the rain has somehow entered my truck, but the dark liquid on my steering wheel seems to be blood. I can't think straight and sit still for a while, and then I suddenly become aware of what has just happened to me. I shoot my hand to the light switch and put on my high beams. All I can see is rain. In front of me, rain and blackness. I check my rear view mirror. Illuminated by the red glow of the truck's taillight, a figure stands, unmoving. All I can make out are its eyes, which are pure white. There are no pupils and no irises, only white. A low humming fills my ears, invading my mind. My vision gets fuzzy, and I pass out. The sky glows with lightning. I wake up in the early morning. The storm has ceased, though a light sprinkle continues to fall. The forest is filled with a dim light, but I see no animals, nor dew. I see the figure. I look down at the dashboard and twist the keys, but my truck doesn't start. I'm not shocked, and it seems my only other option is to walk to the nearest gas station, which is nearly 30 miles away. I swing the door open and step out into the morning air, which is cool and fresh. I sense no danger and decide to inspect my truck before leaving it. My front tires are both flat and are nearly buried in the mud, while the back half of the vehicle is bent inwards. Whatever the figure is, it hits hard. Shaken by the memory, I start trudging down the road. My head still hurts, but I continue on in the rain. Gray clouds roll across the sky overhead. It is lighter now, and the rain has turned into a mist. I have walked a mile or so from my car, and I am standing in front of a deer. It is lying on its side, and its organs are strewn across the road. The foul iron smell of blood hits my nostrils, and I start breathing through my mouth to avoid the stench. At first, it appears to be roadkill, but I see no glass or scraps from a collision with a car, and no other part of the deer is damaged except for its torso, save for the eyes, which are pure white. I squat to get a better look at the deer. It seems to have been ripped open, and only from one side, from which all the organs were removed. Then I notice something and fall back onto the ground, splashing in the pool of blood around. The animal, its heart is beating. I can see the rhythmic jerking of the muscle. I do my best to stand up and step back, and dread fills me. The core as the deer's mouth starts to twitch. I can see a dark figure out of the corner of my eye. A low humming begins to drown my thoughts again, and then, amid the fear and the hum, I hear a whisper, "Run." It is impossible to tell the difference between the mist and the sky as I flee for my life. I can barely hear the sound of a car engine through the beating of my heart and the droning of the hum. I hear someone shouting at me from behind, asking if I'm okay, asking if I need a ride. I turn around, still moving, to see who is yelling. A large truck with dark, tinted windows is following close behind me. I cannot see the driver. I stop and run towards the vehicle, with a friendly voice asking me if everything is all right as I near the window. That is when the it's me. The smell of blood slams into me, causing me to stop in my tracks for a moment before continuing to the driver's side door. When I come up to the window, I freeze, and I cannot find the strength to move. The cab of the truck is coated with blood, and I can see the driver's lungs lying on the dashboard. I look to his face, which is smiling at me as if I were the man's close friend. His eyes are white. I am lost in his gaze. Despite the fear, I feel welcome and safe. I begin to walk around the car to get in the passenger seat when I see the figure standing on the other side of the truck. His white eyes feel like they're tearing me apart, but I manage to run. I run and I keep on running. I run till I finally see the gas station. I do not know how I manage to run so far so fast, but all I can think about is getting help from another human being. As I enter the gas station, thunder rumbles across the sky above me. Hello, welcome to Gas Central, Butte. Eiffel weather out today. I hope you're having a great day under this wonderful clear sky. Let me know if you need anything. I look over to see a woman greeting me from behind a counter and rush over to tell her my story and to call the police. As I explain what has happened, her smile disappears and her eyes fog over till they are as white as bone. She steps back and stares at me and gives a deep sigh. The foul smell of blood reaches me, and the humming starts immediately after. Suddenly I am covered in blood, but not my own. The woman's insides cover the counter and floor, and her body stands before me. Opened up, I can see her spine, as well as her beating heart. I see the black hand of the figure rest on my shoulder. I do not have time to run. Rain starts pouring from the sky outside. Hello, welcome to Gas Central. Beautiful weather out today. I hope you're having a great day under this wonderful, clear sky. Let me know if you need anything. The woman is smiling at me as my eyes begin to fog and the humming drowns out all my thoughts and emotions. My fear disappears as a sweet smell of iron floats through my nostrils and a growing pressure in my chest releases. I smile back. The air is warm and the blue sky shines bright outside. Story 5, A Walk. Jennifer was proud of herself walking down the nature trail in the public park, huffing FR on the exertion she was putting into moving quickly. She'd been putting on a few pounds the past few months since her breakup with Daniel, and it had only been fueling her ever-growing depression, which fed her ever-growing waistline. But now she was doing something about it. Dressed in a tight black t-shirt with a pair of biker shorts, she walked down the trail with purpose, sweating from the hot summer day. The heat of Virginia was only matched by the beauty it held when the flowers all bloomed across the state. She smiled wickedly at the thought. Daniel had horrible allergies. Stopping for a short water break, Jennifer pulled her water bottle from her side satchel, plugging down a good portion of the frosty bottle in one long go. Smacking her lips, she screwed the top back on before heaving a long sigh, trying to catch her breath. The long buzzing of the cicadas combined with the rustling of the branches overhead as the wind blew through the wooded area, bringing the sense of summer to Jennifer's nose. Why? She just couldn't see why she hadn't done this before. Help! A low voice moaned from a distance away, off the trail and deeper into the woods. Hello, she called out, quirking her head to the side to try and hear the cry again, or if it had just been a figment of her imagination. Help! The voice, a low voice, called out from the depths of the forest. It hurts. Who's out there? Jennifer called out, taking a step closer to where she thought she heard the voice coming from. Help! It hurts. The voice was definitely male, and from the sound of it older. It seemed to be coming from perhaps 20 to 30 feet into the wood, where Jennifer thought she saw a clearing. "Hold on, I'm coming," Jennifer said, pushing through the underbrush and jogging towards the low moans of pain coming from the woods. Cursing as the underbrush cut up her calves, she hopped from open patch to open patch, huffing as she fought to try and find a decent path towards the person in distress. Finally breaching the tree line, she saw a meadow blooming sunflowers, a haze of pollen flitting above the wide-open petals. Bees buzzed to and for while, butterflies fluttering from flower to flower, and in the middle of it all was a man with his back facing Jennifer, kneeling amidst the wildflowers, his head tilted to the side. "Help me," the man sighed, a light gurgling beneath his words. "Are you injured? Do I need to call 911? Jennifer asked, marching into the meadow and up towards the man's still form. His whole attire was wrong for the weather. A thick maroon sweater over a bulky torso with dirty jeans. From the sides of his head she could see he had long hair, and longer said, "Eberns, it hurts," he moaned once more, irritating Jennifer. "Look, if you want my help, then you need to tell me what's wrong with you," she said, walking up behind him, grasping his shoulder and pulling him to look at her. A wide-open mouth that was contorted, dislocated, greeted her in a low moan. With a pitiless gaze from eyeless sockets, the bearded man's ski and was drawn tight over his body, as if he didn't have any water in him, and patches of skin opened up with a rash of honeycomb wounds. Still kneeling, the man reached up and grabbed onto Jennifer's arm with an iron grip, tugging her close to his opened maw. Shrieking, she almost didn't hear the buzzing coming from him. When she saw what was causing it, she began to shriek more, belching clouds of angry bees. The man vomited the swarm directly onto Jennifer's face, where she felt their sharpened legs dig and cut into her face. From the holes in his skin, more bees popped out and flew onto her tiny legs, dissecting her piece by piece before flying back into the body of the man. Jennifer struggled, but found she was almost incapable of moving between the man's tight grip and rise of sharp stings appearing all over her face and neck. The initial stab painful, but the area becoming numb within moments. The man moved, shifting with a horrid rigidness as he lowered Jennifer to He ground beneath the sunflowers into a pile of bones, pressing her deep into the soft earth. He continued pouring out gouts of the flying insects, all of which seemed to be harvesting her. She could feel the warmth of her own blood trickling onto her shirt, dampening it, but her face and neck were numb. She could barely breathe from all the insects swarming over her face, and with every breath she took, however shallow, a few insects crawled into her mouth, where they began to cut into her tongue. Choking on her screams, she struggled in vain to try and get out of the man's grasp. Her hands, slick from blood and stinging with hundreds of slashes, and missing hunks of flesh, slid along his arms, and her kicks to his stomach just seemed to rile the bees up as they met over her with one final savage kick to the man's chest. She almost cried in victory as she felt his sternum break and his chest collapse. The man immediately crumpled to the side of her, and the swarm dissipated, flying above in a swirling vortex of bloody gobbets of flesh. Gasping for air, Jennifer pried herself from the man's grip and picked him once more in the chest before crawling backwards through the sunflowers and assorted bones away from him. The sound of buzzing droned on and on around her, making her head swim from the combination of toxins and blood loss. Dizzy, she collapsed back, gasping for air. The bees continued to fly in a swirling tornado above her, forming a wall around her so she couldn't escape, at least not easily. She heard the man hacking and cugging, moaning in agony as he struggled to maintain his own breath with a cracked sternum. Jennifer sat up on her elbows, looking over at the man. If she could have screamed, she would have. All she managed head was a panicked gurgle. Protruding from the man's distorted mouth was a large bee, some 6 inches long, which crawled up from the throat of the man as he jerked and twitched in his final moments of life. The sides of the bee had tubes, and instead of a yellow ringed thorax, this one was shiny black like some hellish wasp. Testing its wings once, twice, it slowly rose into the air and began lazily flying towards Jennifer, long legs dangling below. H hurts, help me. The large bee droned, its tone high and brittle. Are you injured? Injure? Head. H hurts, help me. It mimics what it hears. Jennifer thought frantically, edging away through the wild flowers, eyes locked on the hell wasp growing ever closer. When she reached a certain point, a hailstorm of flesh-eating bees descended upon her, this time merely stinging her into submission, slowly paralyzing her. Dear God, no. Lying amidst the flowers, paralyzed from the combined stings of the numerous bees, there was little Jennifer could do to stop the large one from landing on her chest. She felt its weight, about that of a kitten, pad up her body slowly until the bee was sitting at her lower lip, tugging them down with its mandibles to prickly forelimbs, reached into her mouth, grasping onto her lower teeth, and began to pull down, opening her mouth wider and wider, until it was as wide as it could get. A buzz of wings from the wasp was the only warning she got as it pulled even further, twin pops filling her ears as her lower jaw was pulled out of socket, the pain of bone slipping all on bone had Jennifer moaning in agony, but nothing could prepare her for what would be next. The wasp folded its wings and began to wheedle its way down her mouth and into her throat. She could feel it scraping along the sensitive lining of her esophagus, creating lines of blood to help slicken its path, allowing it to slide down that much easier. For a second, she couldn't breathe, and Jennifer prayed that this would be the end of it, that somehow the insect was killing her and would simply allow her to rot. But then she felt it stirring in her chest, buzzing within a lunge. A sharp pain echoed from beneath her sternum, as if something was cutting her insides with a pair of thin, dull scissors. Then she felt it move again, her chest heaving up and down as her lungs began to operate without her. Even when she tried to hold her breath, the tubes, she thought suddenly, trying her best to think through the pain. It's connected itself up to my lungs on its own, and just as she tried to scream from that realization, did she find herself swarming with bees once more, this time burrowing into her flesh and flying down her throat. She felt them buzzing about in a stomach and laying down wax over the holes they were burrowing to prevent her from bleeding out. Most worrying of all, she felt the continued stinging of the bees as they slowly began to numb her entire body and slowly her mind, and so Jennifer laid there, Amidst the pollen clouds of the wild flowers, bees crawling in and out of her nose and throat, and innumerable holes cut through her t-shirt and bicycle shorts. Staring up into the late afternoon sun, Jennifer's slow, ponderous thoughts only dwelled on one subject: to die. She needed to die, and at these bees out of her body. Story 6. Recording to 1A3. Begin transcription. Date November 21st to 11/11. 11 South. Speaker coughs, averts eyes, nervous. Okay, so damn it. How do I street? Art this well? Okay. Let me say this first. I'm not crazy. I am not paranoid. I do not have a hyperactive imagination. No, I did not watch several hours of horror movies. And no, I was not a sickly child. I am not mentally ill either. Well, other than this notion my parents seem to have of my jumping at shadows, which aren't there. I mean that figuratively, of course. I'm not so crazy that I see shadows that are not there. I mean, who would do that? Speaker chuckles, falters. I just hear it, the true sounds, I mean, that did not come out right. Damn, I'm not making any sense. Speaker sighs, gestures, hands running through hair, palms shining, sweaty. Look. Have you ever heard the wind blowing? Especially when it comes out as that almost ear-splitting watt-hour, and when it's coming through the crack in the door? Or what about when your heart pounds in your ears and your head seems to throb? When this sound appears to echo up your throat, and you just blah, be it on stress or nervousness? What about when you hear the white nose on your TV? What about when a light seems to flicker, but no one else notices, or when the ground seems to shake, but appears still to everyone else? Did you ever even spare a second thought? You're not crazy. You just caught a glimpse of what I experience every day. Think about it. All of these noses just happen to come up right when you think everything around you is silent. When everything fades away and you feel isolated, they always just so happen to start reverberating and repeating back and forth, possibly in long hollow sounds right when you feel like you're alone. They just so happen to trigger the intuition that has saved mankind for so many years, and just so happen to make you question your surroundings. And you probably ignore them. Like any person, speaker smirks, condescending, looks to ground, shakes head. We make our excuses, as foolish as we are as human. Vague daying in background. Speaker is approached. Stop it, no. I am. Footsteps recede. Speaker stares at exit. Speaker's eyes lose focus and gloss over. Speaker stares blankly for a few seconds. Where was I? Oh yeah, we petty humans always seem to like to use reason. Our reason is only based on what we see or experience with our own senses. So what do? We always diss those who sense so nothing different because it does not align with the masses, or we're too scared to acknowledge it. Speaker laughs bitterly, looks to floor, leaving palms on knees. See, when someone offers an alternate option, and we diss it, we fail to realize that there are things our senses cannot pick up. Things we cannot forget have the same magnitude as the things he cannot remember, and that doubt to the fundamentals of our knowledge seems to scare us, because then we cannot trust anyone, not even ourselves. You've probably been told justifications: the nose is TV static, or that it is because it just is. The heart appears to throb because that's just how we perceive it. Or we are told to doubt ourselves that light did not flicker at all. But when a theory is offered that explains it all, we avoid it because we are fearful of the consequences. Our apathy and ignorance is entirely ridiculous. Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said the infamous, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." If you have stuck around to listen to all this, then I hope you are ready to hear, because this is not something you can go back from, even if you try to forget perhaps. That's their one blessing on us. It will always be that little worm in the back of your mind, inching around every doubt, feeding on every fear, questioning every truth you use to believe. Long screech, chair drags back, speaker is visibly startled, eyes dart in all directions. Wait, where are you? No, put me down. What is this place? What? Thud. Where was I again? Read. So it makes its way around every doubt, every fear, every truth you would believe. You thought those noses and small flickers and changes arrow, and you were actually not connected that they could be. So simply explained, how about this? Imagine an insect. I can't tell you what they look like, and even my thinking they are insects is a bit of a deduction from what I know. I can only write it as far as I can see them, which isn't much considering we forget having ever seen them as soon as we look away. It has happened to me so many times, that odd feeling of déjà vu and surreal confusion that follow an encounter, that I actually tried to record the instances. For as long as I did see them, I would note down observations quickly in my journal, but I can only vaguely remember what I wrote, because the next time I look at my journal, even a fraction of a second later, my notes are gone, wiped clean, a blank slate. That's all we are. As soon as you see them head on, you can't remember them. Those sounds, long, intermittent beeping, speaker is visibly shaken, eyes wide, rubbing palms on knees. What time? S up? No, please, not yet, please. I am getting there. Speaker's breath, is haggard and rough, come strained and forced. Yes, I understand. Don't do this, please. Speaker pauses for short interval, looks around dazedly. Story 7. The agent from MIPA. A transcript of the first recorded interview was subject H to 70, a victim of the recent interplanar distress phenomenon that has taken approximately 100 reported humans as of this date. Their numbers grow exponentially.